In the middle of a state marathon, a skinny black teenager was sprinting with everything he had, chasing not just a medal, but a way out. Less than 2 miles from the finish line, the only runner ahead of him suddenly collapsed. Without a second thought, he stopped. What he didn't know was that the girl he just saved was the daughter of one of the most powerful CEOs in the state. That boy was Terrence Miller, a 15-year-old from Raleigh, North Carolina. Raised in a rundown trailer park by his single mum alongside 2 younger siblings, Terrence had never owned new shoes or known what it felt like to not worry about bills. But he did have something no one could take from him: the raw, untamed ability to run like the wind. Every morning before school, after tossing newspapers off his bike, he ran, partly to save time, partly because it made him feel like he wasn't stuck. In a world that barely noticed kids like him, running was the one thing that made him feel seen. Every morning at 4 a.m., long before the sun warmed the rooftops of Raleigh's trailer parks, Terrence Miller was already out on his rusted bike, delivering newspapers with a quiet determination far beyond his years. His sneakers, if you could call them that, were split at the soles and held together with frayed headphone wires. But even with torn shoes and cold air burning his lungs, Terrence ran part of the way to school every day, not because he had to, but because it made him feel free. At school, he rarely spoke unless spoken to. Most teachers overlooked him, and most students barely noticed him. But one person did: Mr. Gonzalez, a retired track coach who now substituted at the school and still carried a stopwatch everywhere he went. During a routine gym class, while other students jogged half-heartedly, Terrence took off like a shot and lapped them all without breaking form. Mr. Gonzalez watched, silent but wide-eyed. He'd trained state champions in his prime, but something about Terrence's natural rhythm, his effortless stride even in broken shoes, caught his attention. After class, he didn't say much, just handed Terrence a water bottle and nodded. A week later, he showed up outside the grocery store where Terrence bagged groceries after school. In one hand was a stopwatch. In the other, an old pair of running shoes from his past, weathered but solid. "They're not new," he said, "but they'll last longer than what you've got." Terrence hesitated. "My mom doesn't think running is a real thing," he admitted. And she didn't. She loved her son fiercely, but life had taught her to be cautious. Years ago, she herself had been a promising runner, regional champion at just 17, but a torn ACL and an unexpected pregnancy had ended that dream before it ever really began. Now she scrubbed floors at a downtown motel and watched her son with anxious eyes every time he came home late from training. She didn't want him chasing ghosts. She'd seen what ambition could do when life didn't play fair. But Terrence never argued. He just kept showing up. Early mornings, late nights, balancing schoolwork, chores and training sessions behind the old-school track. And every time Mr. Gonzalez clicked his stopwatch, he saw a fire in the boy's eyes that no hard time could extinguish. There was something about Terrence's silence that spoke louder than most kids shouting. Something in the way he ran, like he wasn't just moving forward, but trying to outrun everything that had ever tried to hold him back. Mr. Gonzalez didn't push, he just believed. And quietly, day by day, the old coach and the quiet kid with broken shoes started building something stronger than talent, trust, grit, and a goal bigger than either of them had dared to say out loud. Terrence didn't make an announcement when he signed up for the state-sponsored Raleigh Freedom Marathon. He just quietly filled out the online form during a lunch break at the public library, using the school's old computer and hoping the Wi-Fi wouldn't cut out before he hit submit. The entry fee had already been covered. Mr. Gonzalez had pulled it from his own pocket without saying a word. Terrence kept training in silence, not seeking recognition, just keeping his head down and his legs moving. But word got out. At first, it was whispers in the hallway. Then came the ridicule. A group of students from the nearby Ridgeview Academy, a private school known for breeding college-bound athletes, began mocking him openly. They wore state-of-the-art running gear and designer warm-ups, and they couldn't fathom why a poor kid in duct-taped sneakers thought he belonged on the same track. Leading the pack was Caleb Harmon, a senior with Olympic ambitions, a perfect smile, and a last name that mattered. His father was the deputy mayor, and Caleb knew it. When Terrence showed up to an open community run for marathon qualifiers and outpaced nearly everyone, including Caleb, the air shifted. Somewhere around mile 6, Terrence passed Caleb with ease, not out of showmanship, just pure momentum. Caleb, caught off guard, pushed harder to catch up and ended up twisting his ankle on a rough patch of asphalt. He fell behind, limped off, and later blamed Terrence. "He clipped me," Caleb sneered in the locker room afterward, loud enough for the other boys to hear. "Guy doesn't belong here anyway. He runs like he stole something." That single comment spread faster than the truth ever could. By Monday, the narrative had shifted. Terrence had cheated, played dirty, and deliberately caused Caleb's injury. No one questioned it. Not the Ridgeview parents, not the student athletes, not even some of the teachers who'd quietly always assumed kids from Terrence's neighborhood were trouble. Terrence didn't defend himself. He didn't have the time, the energy, or the platform. Even at home, things got harder. His mother, already stretched thin from extra shifts at the motel, begged him to let it go. "Baby, please," she said one night, folding laundry in silence. "You know how they see boys like you. You give them a reason to point, and they'll take it all the way to the police station." But Terrence just shook his head. "I'm not running to prove anything to them," he said softly. "I'm running to break the chain. I'm running so maybe my little brother doesn't have to." His words were simple, but they landed like thunder. Mr. Gonzalez never asked about the rumors. He just kept showing up with his stopwatch and old water jug, nodding once every time Terrence completed a lap. "Let them talk," he said one evening. "We don't run for noise, we run for distance." And so Terrence kept training, alone, underestimated, and carrying a weight heavier than any medal could ever measure. Race day arrived with a chill in the early morning air and a low-hanging fog that settled over downtown Raleigh like a dare. Terrence stood at the starting line among a sea of elite runners in high-performance gear, their earbuds in, GPS watches flashing, each one tuned into their personal best. He had none of that, just his thrifted hoodie, a race bib that fluttered slightly crooked on his chest, and the weathered shoes Mr. Gonzalez had given him, scrubbed clean the night before with a toothbrush and care. When the starting horn sounded, Terrence stayed steady. He didn't chase the lead pack. He knew the long game. He kept his breath even, his pace measured, his eyes forward. Mile after mile, he climbed through the rankings, quietly passing runners whose names were printed in bold across promotional banners. By mile 22, he was top 3. By mile 23, second place. The girl ahead of him, Evelyn Blake, the golden athlete from Ridgeview Academy, was running like clockwork, every stride perfect. But Terrence noticed the change. Her steps began to falter, her shoulders tensed, and then, as the course curved into the shaded greenway near the city park, she stumbled to the side, grabbed the wooden railing, and collapsed. Terrence's instincts kicked in before thought could. He veered off course. Spectators screamed for him to keep going, the finish line just minutes away. But he dropped to his knees beside her. Evelyn's lips were pale, her breathing shallow. "She's in trouble," Terrence called out, eyes darting. The nearby medic station, bare bones, manned by a single EMT and minimal supplies, was less than 100 yards back. The medic, panicked, was already calling for help. "We've got a runner down, possible heat stroke. No backup, crash teams tied up. I can't move her alone." Terrence didn't hesitate. He slipped his arms under Evelyn's limp frame and hoisted her up. Every muscle screamed in protest, his legs already drained from 24 miles of hard pavement. Evelyn was taller than him, completely unconscious, her weight awkward to balance, but he pushed forward, one step at a time. His vision blurred. A cramp seized his left side, his shoes slid once in wet leaves but didn't give. When he reached the medic's bench, he carefully laid her down and followed every instruction. Elevate her legs, apply pressure points, keep her conscious. The medic worked fast. "She's stable now. You bought us time," he said, breathless. Terrence just nodded, wiped sweat from his face, and turned back toward the course. He didn't count how many runners passed him. He didn't care. He crossed the finish line in 6th place. There were no cameras waiting, no headlines screamed his name. The announcers were still celebrating the top 3. Terrence walked past them all, chest heaving, legs trembling, unnoticed by most. No one knew why he had dropped back. No one had seen what happened in the woods. But Terrence knew, and in the quiet that followed, that was enough. No one asked why Terrence had fallen behind in the final stretch. No reporters crowded around him at the finish line. No camera zoomed in on his exhausted face. He received his participation medal with a weak handshake and a paper cup of lukewarm water before quietly stepping aside. Some whispered that he didn't have what it took, that he cracked under pressure. Others scoffed, saying sixth place was nothing to brag about. A few students from Ridgeview smirked as they passed, tossing out digs like, "Guess grit doesn't always win." But Terrence didn't flinch. He didn't explain. Not to them, not to his classmates, not even to his family. Mr. Gonzalez didn't press either. He just clapped a steady hand on Terrence's shoulder and held it there a moment longer than usual, his eyes saying what words didn't need to. That night, Terrence sat on the steps outside their trailer, still in his race hoodie, his bib, number 418, folded in his hand like a reminder of something only he could understand. He wasn't bitter, just tired. 2 days passed. School came and went with sideways glances and awkward silences. People had moved on, distracted by new headlines and viral videos. But then, late Thursday afternoon, the hum of a sleek black Rolls-Royce disrupted the stillness of the trailer park. It turned heads instantly. Nobody drove a car like that around here. It pulled up in front of Terrence's home and idled quietly, like it knew it didn't belong but had a reason to be there. The back door opened and Evelyn Blake stepped out. Her arm was in a sling and her skin still looked pale, but her eyes were clear. Behind her, a tall man in a charcoal grey suit exited the car with practiced grace. He adjusted his tie, surveyed the neighborhood without judgment, and made his way up the cracked steps. Raymond Blake, CEO of Blake Global, the very company that had funded the marathon, looked like a man who didn't waste words. Terrence's mother came to the door, apron still dusted with flour, while his younger siblings peeked through the blinds. "Are you Terrence Miller?" Raymond asked, his voice calm but firm. Terrence stepped forward, unsure. "Yes, sir." Evelyn offered a faint smile. "He's the one," she said softly. "He saved my life." Raymond nodded. "She told me what happened, about the race, about the choice you made. Son, I don't believe in rewarding people for doing what's expected. But what you did, that wasn't expected. That was character." Terrence blinked, caught off guard. "I didn't do it for anything," he said. "I know," Raymond replied. "That's why it matters." He reached into his coat pocket and pulled out an envelope. Inside is a full athletic scholarship, private training, gear, access to a mentorship program we run for young leaders. If you're willing, I want you in it. Not because you crossed the line first, but because you knew when to stop. Silence fell heavy over the porch. For a second, no one moved. Then, softly, Terrence's mother exhaled. And for the first time in a long while, she smiled. Raymond Blake stood on the porch, the afternoon sun glinting off his silver cufflinks, and looked Terrence square in the eyes. "My daughter told me you gave up your chance at victory to carry her off that trail. No medal's worth more than a life, and no coach in the world can teach that. That's not skill, that's character." His voice was steady, but there was something deeply sincere behind the words. "That's the kind of person I want associated with the programs we build." He handed over a formal envelope bearing the Blake Global seal. Inside was a full athletic scholarship to a private training facility, enrollment in the elite National Youth Track program, and a seat in a mentorship initiative for future leaders. But Raymond wasn't finished. Turning to Terrence's mother, still standing at the door, stunned and speechless, he added, "Your son's not the only one with potential. We have a regional office that needs someone with your kind of work ethic. If you're interested, it comes with full health coverage and benefits." Her hand flew to her mouth as she fought back tears, overwhelmed by the sudden shift from survival to security. And just when the moment seemed too good to be real, Terrence spoke up. "There's one more thing. I wouldn't be here if it weren't for my coach." Raymond raised an eyebrow. "Gonzalez?" Terrence nodded. "If I go, he goes too." There was a pause. Then Raymond extended his hand once more. "We always have room for someone who knows how to spot heart. Consider him officially invited as a training advisor." Off to the side, Mr. Gonzalez smiled faintly, the kind that speaks volumes without saying anything. The family stood on the porch in disbelief. No lottery win, no magic moment, just a quiet recognition of goodness finally seen and rewarded. And yet, just when the story seemed like it had reached its final beat, Evelyn stepped forward, her expression softer now. She looked at Terrence, voice low, and said, "When I collapsed, the last thing I saw was my mum. She passed away 2 years ago. She worked nights cleaning hospital floors. She always said if I was ever in trouble, she'd find a way to be there. When I woke up and saw you, I thought maybe she sent you." The words lingered in the air, delicate and raw. Terrence didn't know what to say, so he just nodded, unsure if he believed in signs, but certain that something bigger had happened on that trail. Evelyn didn't need to say anything else. The connection between them wasn't loud, it was honest. Mutual humans. That moment didn't go viral, it didn't need to, because it wasn't about views or headlines. It was about what people choose when no one's looking. And Terrence, who had spent his whole life running to survive, had finally found something to run toward. Purpose, possibility, and the quiet power of doing the right thing when it matters most. A few months later, Terrence Miller was no longer just the quiet kid from the trailer park with patched-up sneakers. He had become a rising star in the world of youth athletics, his name appearing on race rosters across the region. But success didn't change who he was. Between traveling for meets and training at the state-of-the-art facility, he made it a point to return to his old middle school once a month. He'd jog the familiar path past the playground and the cracked blacktop to the backtrack, where kids still wore gym uniforms 2 sizes too big and ran in shoes barely holding together. Terrence didn't come back with cameras or fanfare. He came back with time, with patience, and with the quiet intent to make someone else feel seen, the way Mr. Gonzalez once made him feel. During one visit, he noticed a boy sitting off to the side, watching others run laps with longing in his eyes. Terrence approached and asked, "You want to try?" The boy shrugged. "I don't have running shoes," he mumbled. Terrence didn't say anything. He unzipped his duffel bag, pulled out an old shoebox wrapped in a towel, and opened it to reveal the same worn-out sneakers he had worn during the marathon. The shoes that had carried him through hardship, the ones he had once cleaned with a toothbrush the night before the biggest race of his life. "They're not new," Terrence said, placing the shoes in the boy's hands, "but they'll take you somewhere." The boy's eyes widened with wonder, as if Terrence had just handed him a ticket to a world he never knew was within reach. That moment didn't make headlines, but it changed something. The lesson to carry forward from Terrence's story isn't about winning medals or crossing finish lines first. It's about choosing humanity when the world expects competition. Real victory doesn't come from beating others, but from overcoming the pressure to be selfish when empathy is needed most. The most defining moments in our lives are rarely loud. They are quiet choices made when no one is watching. Terrence could have kept running. He could have claimed glory, but he chose to stop, to carry someone else when she couldn't carry herself. In doing so, he became more than a runner. He became a symbol of what it means to lead with compassion. True greatness isn't built on gold, headlines, or applause. It's built on the legacy of character, of paying kindness forward, of lifting others as we rise. And sometimes the most valuable thing we pass down isn't a trophy. It's a pair of worn-out shoes and the belief that they can take someone farther than they ever dreamed. That's what makes a story last. That's what makes a life matter. Thank you for joining us on this powerful journey through the story of Terrence Miller, a young runner who showed the world that true strength isn't measured in medals, but in the quiet moments when you choose to do what's right, even if no one is watching. His act of compassion not only changed his life, but also inspired a ripple effect that reached his family, his community, and the next generation. At X-Dailystories, we believe these are the stories that matter, the ones that remind us of our shared humanity, of courage found in unexpected places, and of the everyday heroes walking among us. If this story moved you, if it made you think, feel, or reflect, even just for a moment, we invite you to support more content like this. Hit the subscribe button and join the X-Dailystories community, where we bring real, heartfelt storytelling to light every single day. Don't forget to like, share, and turn on notifications so you never miss a story that might just change the way you see the world. Because sometimes, all it takes is one story to remind us what we're capable of. See you in the next one.